Okay, today we're going to look at the last couple of sections, starting with types of membranes. Epithelial, here again, epithelial means outside. Epithelial membranes are thin because a lot of times stuff is going to pass through it. Sheet-like structures, they're made up of epithelium or epithelial cells and connective tissues. They're going to cover body surfaces and they're going to line inside cavities. So here again we would be looking at lining of organs and cavities, skin, and these different membranes are going to be built differently and have different jobs. So if we look at a serous membrane, it's a double membrane that lines body cavities that do not open to the outside. So like your thorax, abdominal cavities are going to have serous membranes. My stomach does not open to the outside. It's going to be connected to my esophagus. It's going to be connected to my small intestine. So some examples of these membranes would include the pleura, which is your lungs, pericardium, heart, peritoneum, abdominal area again. Parietal portion, that's the outside portion. Parietal portion is going to line the cavity, and the visceral lines the organ. That's a review of last chapter. A small amount of serous fluid is located in between these two layers. So I have this outside parietal membrane, the inside visceral membrane, and then this serous, which remember serous is a watery fluid, is going to go in between those two linings. And that double membrane is going to make up the serous membrane. Mucous membranes then typically are going to line cavities that do open to the outside. Mucus is thicker, it's going to catch things, it's going to prevent stuff from going into different areas. So areas that open to the outside would be oral, mouth, nasal, some of your digestive, urinary, and reproductive systems. So anything that's going to continue to open to the outside. Do remember those goblet cells when we talked about connective tissue. Goblet cells are the cells that make mucus. So a goblet cell is going to produce the mucus that is going to be part of a mucous membrane. So serous doesn't lead to the outside. Mucus does lead to the outside. Cutaneous membrane is specifically skin. So it has its own category all by itself. Dry membrane, keratinized, we talked about that. As you go up, it starts to keratinize, or basically you have dead cells that are going to protect everything underneath it, and it's also important for waterproofing everything underneath it. Connective tissue membranes are made entirely of connective tissue, so there's no epithelial tissue with it. And these would be in synovial membranes, and they're mostly found in your joint area. So like your shoulder joint, hip joint. Synovial fluid is going to be found inside of this membrane, and that fluid in your joints helps them to move easily. Sometimes as people get older, they will lose some of that fluid, and then that can lead to joint pain. And last section of tissue, muscle tissues. Muscle cells have one job, they contract. So they're going to contract or shorten, and that's what causes movement of the body. There's 3 types of muscle tissue. They have different jobs, therefore they're built a little bit differently. Skeletal muscle is going to move the skeleton, so move your bones. Smooth muscle is going to be found internal, like internal organs. And then cardiac muscle is only found in your heart. That's the only place that you're going to find that. Generally, your muscle tissue does not divide as readily as like epithelial cells, but they do grow larger. There is, especially when these organs are younger, they have to have some division, but as they grow older, they do not divide as well, which is why when you have a heart attack and part of your heart, if you have part of your heart that dies, it does not regenerate very well. So first type of muscle tissue, skeletal tissue, is called skeletal because it attaches to your skeleton. It attaches to a bone. It is voluntary. That means I control it. I want to move my arm, so I move my arm. I want to talk, so I am talking. And I have muscles that attach from my top jaw to my lower jaw. So skeletal muscle attached to bone, voluntary, you control it. The muscle cells or muscle fibers, a muscle cell is called a fiber, are long, they're cylinder shaped, they're packaged together. They're going to have striations, so you're going to see the little lines that go through them. Lots of nuclei spread out through them, and then their job is to contract. So if I'm looking at skeletal tissue under the microscope, you're going to see all of these lines, and then you're going to see dark purple where there is nucleus. Every one of those little dark purple would be one nucleus. Smooth muscle is not going to have those lines. It's also called non-striated. It does not have those lines that run through it. So smooth muscle tissue looks smooth. It lacks striations. Does not have nucleus that's going to show up as much. And here again, it's going to have spindle, long cylinder spindle cells or fibers, and they kind of wrap together instead of running straight across like your skeletal muscle did. This type of muscle is involuntary. You don't control it. So it's found in the walls of internal organs, your stomach, intestines, blood vessels, bladder. So when you eat food, you don't tell your stomach, okay, now it's time to digest, it's time to go to work. We don't have control over that. It is involuntary. The only voluntary muscle you have is skeletal. My stomach's going to work by itself. My blood vessels are going to pump by themselves. I don't have to think about it. So smooth muscle is entirely involuntary. Cardiac muscle should be easy to remember. Cardiac deals with the heart, so that's the only place you're going to find cardiac muscle. So cardiac muscle tissue found only in the heart. Branching fibers, so here you'll see striations again, similar to your skeletal muscle. It's a little bit more interconnected. It's not quite so nice and straight like your skeletal muscle. So they're connected with each other, and they're connected by these discs, intercalated discs. So if I look on a microscope, you see it almost looks like a little dark branch, and that's where those discs are located. Here again, involuntary muscle. I don't have to tell my heart to beat. It does it constantly. So involuntary muscle, and it has a single cell or a single nucleus in each cell. So when I look at it under a microscope, the nuclei are spread out more than they were in the skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle, you'll kind of see a bunch of nuclei that are together. So under a microscope, that's one way to tell cardiac from skeletal. And then if we look at nervous tissue specifically found brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Neurons are the name for nerve cells. So a muscle fiber is a muscle cell. A neuron is a nerve cell. And their job is to conduct electrical impulses. So they're going to pick up, they're going to receive information, they're going to send information. So then these impulses are going to be carried to other neurons. They're going to go to your muscles to cause movement, and they're going to go to glands to stimulate production of something. Neurons have unique cellular extensions. They're going to look very branched. They should be easy to pick out on a microscope slide. Neurons are surrounded by neuroglia, and neuroglia are little helper cells, and they are there to nourish. So they basically have nourishment for your neurons, support, and then they communicate through chemicals with the neurons, but they themselves do not conduct any impulses. The only cells in your body that will conduct an electrical impulse are your neurons. And there you can see a picture. So diagrams, this would be the main part of the cell, and then it's going to have a long branching axon, and it's going to have little dendrites. And when we get into the nervous system, we'll talk more about that. But this is what one neuron would look like. And under a microscope, this is what a neuron would look like. You'd see one nucleus towards the center. It's kind of star-shaped, and then it's going to have the branches that come off of it. And table, like always, here's a table at the end that kind of summarizes your muscle and nervous tissue. So you can look at that for review of what they do and where they're located. And that will conclude Chapter 5.